Hark the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests.
Episode 162, Zigster, the Goblin Hot Dog Vendor. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Andrew Kolb's table in the levitating platter. Hello and welcome to another month's exciting episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests, the best unofficial Dungeons & Dragons podcast in my humbly biased opinion. An amazing guest for you this month. In the month of April 2026, in fact, when we're recording this in the past, but yes, a fantastic guest for you this month. But before I get to my mystery contestant, I have to do it. I have to leave you in suspense with the ad read. This podcast is brought to you by Plus One EXP and their brand new RPG Zine Club. It's a golden age of indie and small press RPGs. For the last several years, Plus One has made it our mission to help new indie creators and small press imprints get their products onto tables worldwide. Our highest goal is to create more sustainable and equitable pathways to getting games made and played. Now we want to take on our most ambitious project yet with RPG Zine Club. What is RPG Zine Club? It is a monthly membership subscription service featuring fresh zines from emerging and expanding creators across the globe. It's our way of inviting GMs, players, and zine lovers everywhere to invest more intentionally in the creative community. It's crowdsourced support without crowdfunding. Now, what are some of the features you have to look forward to when you join the RPG Zine Club? Well, you've got monthly releases with 2 20 to 44 page saddle stitch zines. Take your pick from story zines, adventure zines, or get both kinds. You can get print and digital or digital only of your favorite titles. Join the Clubhouse Discord. It's a section of our online community for club members to discuss and play new titles. Get the best prices guaranteed. You can select your frequency of how often you'd like titles, and you can get what you want and only get what you want. If you miss a month, there's no worries there. You can add recent titles to your month's order and get an annual surprise each February after your first anniversary. Get access to special content, including interviews, how to play videos, and special content for Zine Club titles. Do you like free pizza? Fill out one of the RPG Zine Club passports and redeem it for free pizza at events. You're going to get to encounter new and known designers. We source the best voices from across the RPG design community. We curate zines based on community interest and feedback to help you discover your new favorite creators. We are DIE focused. Plus One is committed to championing diversity, inclusion, and equity in our projects. Creators with diverse experiences make our community better. Zine Club prioritizes creating equity for all of our creators. And it's more than a purchase. Your subscriptions will let us invest more heavily in our print partners and provide them with potentially life-changing support by consolidating scores or hundreds of purchases as the club grows. So, if you want more details, please be sure to go to the website rpgzine.club. And this all can be found also by going to the website plus1exp.com. On that website, if you're making a purchase for a beard balm, a lip balm, beard RPG, or whatnot, and you're looking for a code to use at checkout, be sure to use the code Randolph, RANDOLPH, and save some coin on your purchase. Again, the website to get the discounts from me and provide a kickback to me to help support the podcast would be plus1exp.com with code Randolph. And be sure to go and check out the brand new rpgzine.club. All right, so we've left everyone in suspense long enough, and I'm quite excited to get into this interview today and figuring out who we're going to make later. But I turn the microphone over and I ask, "Hello, mystery contestant. Would you care to introduce yourself? Tell us who it is that you are and what is it that you do?"
Sure. Yeah. Hello. My name is Andrew Kolb. What do I do? So I'm I don't know, jack of all trades, or I wear many hats. In that, I started off as a graphic designer, so I still do some of that, but not as much lately.
Hmm.
That transitioned into quite a bit of illustration, and I would say is still the majority of my, if you think of it as a pie chart, like the majority of that pie is still illustration.
Hmm.
But that has also transitioned into writing, or like it is complemented by writing and game design. So I think part of what has brought me here today is the illustration and design and writing of a handful of like fifth edition light setting books based on public domain picture book or children's book settings, Neverland and then Oz and now Wonderland. So I am the creator of those. I mean, like as much as I can say creator of like Wonderland, right? Like I interpreted those
You went
books
back in
into a setting.
time, you
Yeah.
took out the writer, you claimed the rights for yourself, you time traveled in your DeLorean back to the future,
Yeah,
and then you were
exactly.
like, "Mine."
And then use the almanac to say, this is my empire now. So that's it.
Classic Back to the Future shenanigans. Oh, no, that's cool. Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, your illustrative work is fantastic. I was showing it off to coworkers today. I was like, "This is who I'm going to have on my episode later tonight." They were like, "Wow, his portfolio is amazing," or "Oh, I recognize his work. It's great and fantastic." You have a very, it's very cartoonish and it's
Hmm.
whimsical, and I feel like it harkens back, like even the style. Like I feel like I'm getting like there's like a particular poster in the Fallout 3 game that kind of has
Okay.
like that same sort of like style
Yeah.
that you can do like the people in sometimes that I've seen as of late. I'm like, it captures like, and I think maybe even you did some artwork on your Instagram that you shared recently of like the Fantastic Four movie that came out. Like,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it feels very, your artwork, it like harkens back to the 60s, I feel like. It's very like bright, poppy, and it's like it just feels like science fictional wonderful and all
Yeah,
that.
absolutely a big influence. The mid-century was a big influence when I was going through for graphic design, definitely studying that era and kind of its influence on design, both like print and then also kind of in like product design, just kind of in everything. And then that carried over into my illustration influences as well. Yeah, so I appreciate you picking up on that because I'm glad that, at least I try to interpret that and kind of put it into my work. So if you're seeing that too, then hopefully that means I'm successful on some level.
Yeah, no, I think you totally are. I mean, you've gotten, you were just recently published, I think, in an anthology compendium book for Wizards. I was checking that out again today. I was like, oh yeah, you've actually done stuff for Hasbro and Wizards with one of the adventures.
Yeah, for Dragon Delves, I only did the artwork, which was still great, and really because of I don't know how much I can go into it, but the inspiration for the adventure was a lot of like folklore and picture books and fairy tales. So
Mhm.
them coming with that inspiration and saying this is what we really want to kind of capture with the imagery was perfect. Like I was just like, oh, okay, great. I understand why you came to me for this project because my general understanding or impression of like what fifth edition or like Wizards of the Coast D&D artwork is supposed to be is not what I
Mm.
do at all. So it was really
Yeah.
fun to kind of get to I don't know, feel comfortable in what I'm doing, but also do it for this brand.
Yeah. Yeah, and for sure, I definitely don't want to leave it out, but the way our I feel like I started following you is because our mutual friend Andrew Strother,
Mhm.
who ran the Roll for Persuasion podcast, was so inspired by your Neverland setting book that he decided to create a whole actual play
Yeah.
show based on it, Second Star to the Right, which was fantastic and fun to get to listen to. Oh, those were back in my days where I was having to commute like 3 hours a day, back and forth across the metroplex. So like, yeah, I would like the beginning of the day, I would start one of those second start of the right episodes, and then by the time I got home, it's like, oh, great, I caught up on the episode, and so it was fantastic to get to listen to that show. And and I guess that melding into the question, sort of like, these three big, IPs, if you will, or
Sure.
big folkloric or whimsical and whimsy sort of settings, which obviously, people know, like Alice in Wonderland and Peter Pan and the Wizard of Oz as like, Disney animated or movies or live action movies, or even newer Broadway musicals, and then those Broadway musicals have been turned into movies. But just going to the source material, as you were alluding to earlier, what was that like, or the inspiration to be like, you know what, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to write a whole setting and a book and get it made and get it published, and now people can have their adventures in Neverland and Wonderland and Oz.
Yeah, when it's condensed down like that, it sounds like a very easy and just succinct like A to B to C path. But to go back, like Neverland was kind of how it all started, and
Mm-hmm.
the idea behind that was, or the kind of the thrust behind that project was because I needed something to get non RPG players into D&D pretty quickly, like with pretty succinct buy-in, and
Mm-hmm.
found that because there was so much going on with the rules and the like character sheet, like that tended to be what folks were focusing on, that if
Mm-hmm.
I started to really kind of like start from scratch and build this whole world, they either they weren't interested or just kind of you could see them glaze over.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with like a picture book and a story that I already kind of was really connected to, building out Neverland already kind of had a lot of the, not tropes, but definitely a lot of the kind of factions and whimsical and fantastical elements that
Mm-hmm.
naturally kind of lend itself to the sort of D&D game I want to run. So going with Neverland as, okay, here's where we're going to explore, then the people who are sitting down and playing with me already kind of had some kind of familiarity with it, of like, oh, okay, I know pirates and I know mermaids, like these things that, because they'd already read the books or seen the movies, didn't really
Mm-hmm.
kind of think of them as fantastical elements or things to kind of learn.
Mm-hmm.
So then we could kind of get into, oh, okay, well, I want to go hang out with the Lost Boys, or I think there are probably Lost Boys up here, so let's go explore.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, they're not really thinking about the character sheet now anymore. So that was kind of my
Oh,
goal, was really to kind of get them to
interesting.
focus on just playing, and that was kind of my, like this like spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. That was my plan, and then that and playing enough in Neverland lent itself to me approaching my literary agent. So because I work in picture books and kind of am by day normally like a picture book illustrator or like a professional illustrator,
Mm-hmm.
basically reached out to her and said, okay, I have this thing that I think is working well. I think there could be a market for it. Like it was filling a void that I couldn't find in like the world at large, which was kind of these kind of easily accessible settings or like campaign like environments. And
Mm-hmm.
so she was really receptive to it, had no idea what D&D was, had very little exposure to any of this, but was like, okay, let's talk and figure out. So through that, then we kind of found Andrew's McMeal. They were really receptive to it. And then after that kind of was, I mean, again, I'm skipping over months, if not almost a year of work of polish and illustrating and map making and all the things that go into kind of making something complete and more than just kind of what I needed for my group. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
After that, and after it kind of came out and was well received, then basically that became the first in the series. So Neverland was well received, and then that became what do I do next? And then because Neverland was kind of a real wild adventure, I really wanted to kind of flip and go, what is kind of the almost exact opposite and what would help me? And that is where I went into Oz and kind of really went, okay, I'm scared of like an urban adventure, and then why? And then what would I need to make that? And then kind of dove into that. So that's where Oz came from.
Mm.
And then those were
Okay.
all an investment into Wonderland, which is kind of like my not passion project, but definitely the story that I have the most connection with. So
Interesting.
I didn't feel ready to do that right away after Neverland. I was like, this is still very new. Like I knew Neverland because I had worked on it
Mm-hmm.
and had played it and was like living in it. And then Oz was an adventure after that. And then Wonderland, after finishing Neverland and Oz, Wonderland was like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then the last thing that I was scared of was dungeon crawl, like a pure kind of classic, like a real old
Mm.
school setting.
Yeah. Like a
And so
Greyhawk sort of a thing.
yeah, and so that's where Wonderland came about. Was okay, if we're falling down the rabbit hole, if we're kind of in this underground, or like, well, my idea was that my vision was if we're falling into the rabbit hole, then it is like this underground setting that becomes the dungeon,
Oh.
and then we build
Oh,
that out.
interesting.
So
That's a really cool way to approach it. Like
thanks.
literally, oh, you're going down the rabbit hole. So it's like you are falling into the mega dungeon now,
Yeah,
and this
yeah,
is the mega dungeon that is Wonderland.
yeah.
That's really cool.
And same idea. What was it that scared me about running a dungeon? And then how do I kind of solve those problems? So the books are always kind of, at least for me, the book that I wish I had when I wanted to start running X, or like fill in the blank. Like for Neverland, it's a hex crawl. For Oz, it's an urban setting, but also a point crawl. And then for Wonderland, it is a dungeon crawl. So that's kind of how the trio work.
That's amazing. And as you were explaining the impetus, the origin story of each of these settings, what I'm hearing is like, cuz obviously people have their opinions on the established settings and it's like, "Oh, do you follow that what they publish? Like do you do Forgotten Realms? Do you do Greyhawk or
Uh,
Eberron or any of these other ones?" And it's like, "Oh, my players, because they've never been exposed to Dungeons and Dragons before. They have no idea or basis for it, but it's like, oh, everyone knows what Neverland is or what The Wizard of Oz is about or what uh Alice in Wonderland is about. So it was like it was your vehicle to get the verisimilitude and the buy-in from the players of like, okay, I have an understanding of where I'm going to be. So it's easier for me to accept like, oh yeah, I'm just like a kid who showed up on Neverland and we've got to find missing star pieces in order to get home, sort of
right.
a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And with these like new locations, then also making it easier for me as a DM to run it too. Like I because I don't have the same history with the established settings,
Hmm.
it was a lot easier for me to go, okay, what are the motivations for this character? Because I'd kind of already lived with them for years as a child. So
Right.
that was also a benefit for me too. It wasn't just for my players. I'm selfish and guilty of doing it for myself as well.
That's fair enough. Well, I mean, you got the hat trick, so you've done three.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, is there a fourth that's in the chamber that's being worked on? That
Those were the
this will come out in April, so like certainly you can spoil us with a teaser now if you need
oh,
to,
thank you.
or if
No,
you're like, no, I've three's my limit. I'm gonna ride out this high on top.
at point of recording or time of recording, I am still in like the research phase. I think I always knew with Neverland, I had started with it. With Oz, I knew that was kind of a good follow up, and was always
Mhm.
kind of working towards Wonderland. Like those three I always had in mind.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's still kind of waiting now for the point of not inspiration, but I think with each of those three, I knew what problem I was trying to solve,
Hmm.
and what I wanted to focus on. And I don't have that yet for a fourth book.
Okay.
So I promise once I have, or once I know, oh, this is what I want to do, it is because I feel like I'm not filling a void, but definitely making the thing that I can't find. So that's what I'm still in the research phase of, is like, what is it that I can't find yet? And
Yeah.
so I don't have a good answer. I don't have a good reveal
That's
for you
no,
yet.
that's totally fine.
But
That's a bit
that's the plan.
of a self-indulgent just side
Fair.
question, I guess. But also follow-up side question, as you're in this research phase, because for the longest time and each of these books have been developed sort of like with a fifth edition or like a Pathfinder sort of frame in mind. Now that we've had some pretty big titles from third party publishers come swinging out the gate, with like Tales of the Valiant. We've got Daggerheart, from
Right.
Critical Role, and we've got Draw Steel from MCDM Productions. So, as you're researching, are those other kinds of systems in your mind, or is it more important for you to just make sure that, like, when you're in this research mode and you're thinking what problem am I trying to solve, is it more of like what speaks to me, keep it system agnostic, or are you thinking like, okay, if I want to run a Daggerheart game or if I want to do a Draw Steel game, with Draw Steel, which I think both in Daggerheart you maybe only deal with 10 levels, whereas like
Mm,
something with D&D, you're in Pathfinder and Tales of the Valiant, you're probably dealing with like 20 levels. So it's like, I don't know, is it a question of that, or is it just like, I don't know, I want to run a good zombie game. So it's like, okay, like how can I do like a good zombie game now that's somehow whimsical and fun, like
Yeah,
a
that's a
Fido
good
movie or something like that.
That's a good question because I haven't so succinctly it is based on the vibes or the theme. Like I really go, oh, like what is it that I want to be the spirit of the book? So
Yeah.
I do generally try to keep it system agnostic. It gets harder when you get into the like characters or the stats, like that kind of crunchy stuff.
Oh yeah.
But when I go into the settings, I think and have experienced or heard from people who are running games using other settings with my books, which is best case scenario. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
But I recognize that
A
also
draw
takes some
steel
work.
game in Wonderland or something like
Yeah,
that. Like,
yeah, and that's so I have a Discord channel for the three settings, and that was a recent request or a recent kind of like question from Wonderland DMs was, has anybody done this yet? What have you found, and what do you recommend? Because it is still, or at least Wonderland is probably my most map focused because it is a dungeon crawl and you need proper like, oh, actually how many squares is this and between X and Y. So
yeah.
I think it lends itself well to a strategy based game. So
Yeah.
I hope to hear about more Wonderland based draw steel adventures.
Well, that'll be amazing, and I hope the MCDM Discord as well is buzzing with that sort of thing. Like,
I hope
hey,
so
I
too.
picked up this Wonderland book. I don't know if you know it. It's basically like a mega dungeon. So if you wanted to run a tactical, cinematic, heroic fantasy, maybe you could try it with Wonderland.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would love to hear that. And when I did Oz, my goal was for someone to run Blades in the Dark in it because
Ooh.
because it's so city based. And I know with all of this it takes some tinkering, so
Yeah.
I never have any expectations. But at some point there was at least a short campaign run with using Blades in the Dark again through my Discord channel that I heard about. So that goal
Pretty
or
cool.
that box was checked, which was again a goal of mine. So yeah, it's really great to see people use other systems with my settings.
Yeah. Well, I think this is going to lead us in beautifully to the next question. But have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons
I
before?
have currently, yes, I also am currently playing. My group that we've been playing for, I think, close to 10 years now, and
Whoa.
started with other settings. And then we're generous enough to become my playtesters. We still meet weekly. So we're kind of bouncing back and forth between my own settings because we were playtesting and have really gone into it. So that's kind of what we go
Sure.
back and forth between. But that's the D&D that I play right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say someone's gotten in deep and is like, no, I've taken over for the Red Queen. It's like now I control her kingdom, and it's like,
Yeah,
don't you see? And the other players are like, oh, now we got to fight this other player because they've gone mad with power in the dungeon.
yeah, well, and so Wonderland is definitely the just based on working on the setting is the one that we're the least into or like the least we haven't made as much progress in it as we have, let's
Oh,
say,
okay.
Neverland. So what you're describing is close to what's happening in Neverland. In Wonderland,
Oh,
when we go back, it's also a shock for them to go to much lower level characters and realize that their threat level is much higher compared to their much more robust characters in Neverland, which are kind of at not world ending conflicts yet, but definitely at world changing levels of conflict. Yeah.
I see. I see. Yeah, perfect. And of course, with this podcast, we're all about the sidekicks and the side quests. So the first of these, who happens to be your favorite NPC or sidekick character, whether they be from RPGs, video games, movie, film, television, literature, etc., or even your own products? And why is this character your favorite sidekick or NPC?
I won't pick one from my own projects. That doesn't feel it's also not genuine. I
It's
think
hard to choose your favorite
yes,
child. I
yeah.
get it.
So I would say one of my favorite side characters is from literature because I know kind of talking at a time that it would be okay if I picked from
Yeah.
something else. But the Discworld series of novels, if you know them,
Mm.
there is there's a main city, Ankh-Morpork, and there is a sausage on a bun vendor, and his name is Cut Me Own Throat Dibbler, and so he's like a real mainstay in any of the books set in that city. And then you find out sometimes when they go to other cities or when the books are set in other cities, that there's that city's version of cut me own throat dibbler, who also sells whatever that city's version of sausage on a bun is. So it's just kind of like one of those archetypes that always appears, and is never really pivotal to the plot, but always kind of adds that element of, I don't know, verisimilitude to the setting of like, oh right, this is alive. Like he's the hero of his own story that we're never going to read or see, but he's still alive and he's still doing his own thing. And you always see changes as you read through the books because again, he's having his own adventures and has always stood out as one of my favorite side characters. There are other characters that are like main characters of the Discworld books that I love, but as a true side character, he stays is definitely one of mine.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar with the Terry Pratchett works, but I actually myself have not read very much of Terry Pratchett. So if I ever do get into the Discworld series, I'll be on the lookout for a
Oh,
sausage and
good.
bun vendor and
Good.
the Nurse Joy, Officer Jenny equivalents. Not that
Yes.
they're exact clones, but they're like, oh, we go to this town. Oh, he's the apple guy, or
Yes.
oh, over here he's the cabbage guy, or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think serves the same purpose in that makes it feel like, oh yes, there are these kind of archetypes that kind of exist no matter where you go in the world, just because it's just the nature of a city.
Yeah, totally. And then same thing, what happens to be a favorite side quest of yours or a B plot element? Again, same criteria of RPG, video game, movie, film, literature, etc. And why is this side quest or B plot element your favorite?
Oh, okay. So this one was harder because when I think of side quests, I think of the Chrono Trigger video game from Super Nintendo, which was
Okay.
like a pivotal game for me and really influential in a lot of my own kind of like design and art direction and character design.
Yeah.
And because, well, I don't think this is spoiling much. It's also, I don't know, a
It's a
30-year
super
old.
old game by
Yes,
this
yeah,
point.
yeah. So it's a game that kind of revolves around time travel.
Hmm.
So some of my favorite side quests really lean into that, really lean into the time travel element. So there's one, again, this is spoiling a bit of it, but at one point you recruit a robot, and that becomes a party member. And one of the side quests is to like rebuild a forest,
Oh,
and the solution to it is that you leave this robot behind so that way they can kind of do this and spend, I don't know if it's thousands, but definitely hundreds of years replanting this forest. And what really stuck with me was the idea that like, because you can time travel, it's for you at least a moment. Like you go, oh, okay, we're leaving him behind, and then 10 seconds later, as much as the cutscene takes, you are now in the present, and you are now in this robust or like this like fully like lush forest, and you find the robot and he's rusted and you need to repair him, and that has its own kind of emotional weight to it.
hmm,
But it really, and as a kid playing it, really was maybe the first time that I, not that I dealt with mortality, but definitely dealt with like the passage of time in like in an honest way, or in like in the way
yeah,
an adult would see it, and going, oh right, for him or for this robot, for them it was years, like decades, centuries, but for you it was just the blink of an eye, and that always kind of carried weight with me. And then just to have him back in your party almost instantly really kind of felt like, oh yeah, there's a lot that kind of happened between those moments for you that you just don't
yeah.
get to see. So that is one of my all-time favorite side quests from a game.
That's amazing that you gave that answer because I'm pretty sure that was early on in the podcast. I think like first season. He described this exact same side quest as you were telling me. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah. So this side quest has definitely had an impact with all those Chrono Trigger fans."
Oh,
And
wild.
yeah, and between then and now, I've had a kid since then. So like I mean, you say that and explain that, and I can't help but think about like, oh yeah, like my life,
Oh, wild.
how
Yeah.
it's been so changed, with my 4.5-year-old running around my house of like, oh, there was 1 minute where, I'm just a newly married guy with a wife, and then like, in the blink of an eye, it's like suddenly I have a 4.5-year-old and like, all the life experience that comes with it, and before all the mental cognitive stuff happens for your kid where like you know if you ponder back and think like you were living your life as a baby and a toddler, then suddenly it like clicked in your brain when you were like, okay, I'm consciously living like each day. So like
Right.
that whole kind of I guess it's different for a robot, but like, just kind of thinking of that moment of like, oh, I've always just been a kid living in my house with my parents and my family and stuff like that. And, grandparents and siblings and relatives and friends have come and gone and stuff like that. As a kid, certainly the idea of like leaving like a good friend behind, you're thinking like, oh, this is forever. Like it's a
Right.
tragedy that I'm having to do this. But then as an adult, you're like, oh, wait, it's only going to be 10 seconds. But still that child mindset of like, oh, that poor robot who doesn't think or feel or have emotions like a person, but still like we're still going to give that robot a personification of
Right.
like making them feel like a person even though they weren't. But yeah, no, that's fantastic, and it's thank you for allowing me to kind of like revisit that side quest again in uh in story context since I've never played the games, but hearing it again years later, now I'm like, oh wow, yeah, there's like a new way to look at it and understand it and understand why it's such a favorite or it's a good side quest or
Oh,
a good
great.
design for a side
I will
quest.
go back and listen to that episode specifically to hear their interpretation of the quest and what it meant to them too, because I'm always curious. I'm also like on the Chrono Trigger Reddit, and I always enjoy reading through people playing through the first time and seeing all that too. So it's a fun
All
experience.
the YouTube videos of like, all right, we're doing a let's play or
Right.
actual play of the video game. That's the first time I've never played Chrono Trigger before. The Super Nintendo controller. How do I handle this?
Right. Yeah.
It's like you mocking me of my oldness for that. That was a fine video game system before all these fancy virtual reality doohickeys came along.
Well, and I think it maybe says something to, at least for me, some of the best art is that which, when you kind of revisit it, you get something different from it if you're at a
Mhm.
different stage in your life. And I think if I went back and played it now, I think I would have a different appreciation for different characters who are kind of at different stages in their life, and compared to
Mhm.
when I was a 16-year-old living at home with my parents. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoy seeing people experience it for the first time and at different stages of their life as well.
Yeah. You think it's one of those games that like, hey, you should play this at like different points in your life to like get different things out of it. Like the same sort of, I don't know, the feeling, I don't know. Like I remember it's probably been like 10 years since I've seen it, but the movie Boyhood when it came out, like
Oh yeah, okay.
Rich Linklater wrote, directed it. I think a lot of it was shot around Houston, and I grew up around Houston or like that part of Texas, and so like seeing the movie, like the idea that it was shot over years, and you're watching like the technology slowly change as the movie goes on, and it's like that weird sensation of like I'm somehow time traveling as the movie's going on, but I'm also somehow growing up and maturing at the same rate as the characters and all the pivotal journeys and story that they're going through.
Yeah.
Deep thoughts. Deep thoughts that we can have over sidekicks and side quests here on this podcast.
Yeah, because
And I
we're
think,
really we're talking about art, right? Like we're talking about the kind of human distillation into whatever it is that we do into these like gems or kernels of experience.
yeah. And I think the way to bring it all together here in the personal interview section, Andrew, what are you passionate about and why?
Good question. I and in reflecting on this and obviously hearing you ask others, I really was like, what am I passionate about? And really maybe I had to think of like, what is it that I am inspired by? So, I mean, like the broad answer is maybe storytelling, but and that's like from myself and also enjoying the storytelling of others. But I think the answer I want to give is like games, and by that I mean like I'm really passionate about learning new games and like learning and seeing now as I've kind of like gotten to be on the kind of design side, uh, getting to see others' processes or also how people solve their own problems, especially when you're talking about blending themes with mechanics. Like I think it's a weird kind of marriage of like something very programmed or robotic. And this is in video games or board games or tabletop games, like something that is so not quite binary, but like dice are not creative inherently. And how do you pair that with something that is so creative as like storytelling or artwork? And how do you kind of blend those things together? So for me, it's yeah, broad strokes games. Like I recently got back into, not back into, I was never really into baseball, but as an adult have found an appreciation for baseball. And now learning the rules and seeing that through a different lens that I think as a kid I wasn't interested in.
Yeah.
But as an adult feeling like, oh, this is a lot of math, and this is a lot of it feels different in a way from any other kind of like physical sport that I'm really kind of curious about.
And
What
it's
do
the
you?
Blue Jays, right? That
Yes,
you root
yeah,
for, probably.
yeah.
I was
So
going to say, not too many Canadian baseball teams that I can name off
no, I
the
think
top of my head.
the only one. So now this is now where we are. The Jays lost the World Series ages ago, but back when they were still in it, that was really kind of what my kind of reintroduction was. And from that point, going, oh, okay, what is going on with these pitchers? How many? And now the rules have changed so much since I was a kid. But again, seeing it through the lens of like not quite a game designer, but definitely from an appreciator of games, seeing it that way really kind of gave me new light. And now I'm watching 9 innings or more and enjoying it the entire time because it means so much more than what it did when I was a kid. So yeah, I'm passionate about games. And I know that's a very broad stroke answer, but it really does act as the umbrella over everything that I'm interested in.
Well, fantastic answer. And maybe, well, since I've alluded to Houston, I know that the first professional sports game that I ever went to, a friend of mine from like my elementary school days, took me to go see the Astros play at
Oh yeah,
the
okay.
Astrodome, back
Yeah.
when the Astrodome, talk about 1960s architecture of a
Yeah,
place. That place was cool. But yeah, getting to see the Astros play at the Astrodome was certainly a good childhood memory. And since then, if I haven't cared so much about American football teams, but it's like I'll always root for the Astros, even if I don't know all the complexities of the baseball rules. It's still
sure.
like the Astros are my team, and I know a lot of people will be like, "Hey, oh, not all their championships count," but it's like I don't know. They won twice, so it's like seems good to me. Even though my wife likes to tease me that like one of those championships maybe perhaps they didn't deserve, but this podcast stands by the fact that they won twice. So
Cool.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Would
Maybe
you
with an asterisk, but they won twice.
would you say you are a baseball fan or like a sports fan in any capacity?
I'd say I've gotten more so a little bit more into sports because my wife and her family are certainly sports lovers. And even where I work, I've been the last couple of years involved in the fantasy football
Oh yeah, okay.
arena. And I just came off a solid 8-week winning streak. Unheard of for me. I've always been the bottom of the barrel, but this season, for whatever reason, just the stars aligned, the spirit spoke to me when I was picking my team members. And I kid you not, I went on, I was like from the very beginning of it up until just this last Sunday at time of recording, 8 solid weeks of wins, and I just had my first loss. So I'm like at the top of the heap at the office fantasy football pool. So I stand to win this year for a
Just cruising on
championship.
easy street. Okay.
Yep. Still managing my teams, but yeah.
Oh,
So doing that and fun fun fan listeners of the podcast, if they know the history, they can go back on YouTube and look for the podcast I did before this one, Blank Tape Show, with my buddy Anson, who's a proud sponsor of this podcast. One of our episodes we did a fantasy football draft, but we had it with the twist that we were recruiting MCU and DECU characters to be on
oh
our
yeah.
football teams. So
Okay.
we picked like regular players, but then we superimposed like, oh, this player represents like Wonder Woman, or this player represents, a Daredevil. And so we had, two teams each, and we had a season of doing that. And fun fact, if the podcast had kept going, we were going to do another twist and be like, okay, baseball season's coming around. We're going to do fantasy baseball, which I've never done before, but we'd do fantasy baseball and it would be all villains.
Oh
So
yeah,
you'd have to
okay.
pick all the villains being like baseball
And
team
map them on.
players.
Oh, that's fun too.
Yeah. So maybe I'll have to try doing fantasy baseball one of these years and just see how competitive it really is.
Yeah, I wonder. So I play in a fantasy football or like soccer league with my friends who are into soccer, and I don't watch any of the games. I only go off of numbers and do surprisingly well, like low tier, but like surprisingly well for never watching a single game. But that has introduced me to fantasy sports, and I think now paired with a better understanding of baseball as a sport, I do wonder what that would be like. I think I might get into fantasy baseball. Maybe this is the late breaking news that we've found
maybe
on the
this is the thing
podcast.
that we do together. We just start playing fantasy sports together, baseball, football, we do it all.
Yeah, I have no game related news, but I can tell you Andrew Kolb is getting into fantasy baseball. That's the breaking news.
That's the breaking news. All right, excellent. Well, I think we've had a fantastic personal interview section of the podcast, and it's now time to head into some NPC creation. And NPC creation is brought to you by you, the podcast audience, and our patrons from Patreon. So now's the time of the show where we give a loud hurrah to our comfortable patrons and above. So hurrah to you all. I've got my whiskey sour with us at time of recording, so cheers. Yeah. So, of course, all these folks that I need to cheer, Ansa Jablinski and good old mom and dad, thank you so much for supporting the podcast. All these folks that I just named are actually wealthy tier patrons, which means they get to introduce an element of chance to our random tables that we have here in NPC creation. So if Andrew decides to get a little random, test the dice and the fates, then we might hear some of their responses used here today. So if you want to learn more about the Patreon and Ko-fi and other ways to support the podcast, I certainly would appreciate it. It'll just continue to help us to step up our game. You can find out multiple ways about how to support us. Why? You can go to the show notes below. You can go to the podcast website or just go directly to patreon.com/sidekicks and side quests. Find out more about the 4 tiers of accommodations that we have awaiting for you at the Levitating Platter. Help us to grow and expand our operations in this demi-plane and worlds beyond. Okay, so now is the part of the show where we get to make up a character. You're pretty good at doodling them, and now we get to make up a character. So are we going to be randomly generating character, or do you have an idea for a character? And, we're allowed to mix and match, so maybe you've got some ideas or some things figured out, but you just feel like randomizing an aspect of the character or spitballing. We could do that too.
I do have some ideas based on us talking about the side characters from Discworld. I would like to make somewhat an interpretation of Cut Me Own Throat Dibbler, or at least a sausage on a bun vendor. I think that could be fun for an NPC. So that's at least kind of like the kernel that we will hopefully build off of. But happy to roll some random stuff for it too.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got our skeleton framework. So we're making like a sausage and bun vendor guy.
Yeah.
That maybe has like clones or iterations or similar archetypes of characters in the different cities of your world. But wherever you're first going to encounter this character, this will be like the first one that you meet before you start noticing that, hey, this guy seems to be appearing in all these places. He just has a mustache in that other city.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I imagined that. So talking about the character, I did imagine that they were like a goblin. So I know that can also be tricky depending on your setting. But I do like the idea of like a small goblin.
A goblin.
Running a cart with questionable foodstuffs inside.
Perfect. So as we work our way through the questions, do you have an idea for the character name, or did you want to roll for that?
Oh, I think we could roll. I was thinking if it's a goblin, I think in honor of the original, like the inspiration's name, I did like the idea Throat Cutter, but that might also, I also know my players, if you introduce someone named Throat Cutter, then they are immediately going to think that this is a murderous or a dangerous creature. So I think it might be nice to roll randomly.
Sure, yeah. So we've got, if you want to roll for a name, it will be a D20 roll.
Okay. So rolling a D20, I have gotten a 9.
A 9. Wow. Would you believe it? I was staring at my D20 chart and I was like, I wonder if it's going to be this choice. And you rolled a 9.
Oh, great.
This answer provided by our previous guest, Michael Horsley. Zigster.
Okay. Yeah.
Zigster.
Okay. Yeah, I could see a
Yeah.
Zigster in each city or in each town selling sausages. That's great.
All right, and it sounds like by the description that you had, the skeleton framework, the ancestry of the character, goblin, like just straight up like tiny, like small creature sized goblin.
Yeah, and I think if that's not appropriate for your setting, then like a halfling or like definitely a small, tough statured background would be the best fit.
Okay. I kind of like the I think goblin's good,
I do too.
because maybe they're not in the major city, but maybe they go to like I don't know, they go to the thieves market underground, or they're randomly in the Feywild and they just happen across this goblin that's running this cart like a food cart, food truck or something in the middle of a glade. So
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
you're walking down a dangerous path and you hear the squeaky wheels rolling, and everyone gets off the road thinking that it's going to be something dangerous, and it's just a goblin pushing a cart, and it smells good because it's got hot, fresh, cooked food in it.
Perfect. And then let's see the jobber role in the occupation, the jobber role in society that Zigster has is a food vendor, is
Yes,
what we're
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, I think, I mean, sausage on a bun is maybe what makes the most sense, or a hot dog. But I guess the core concept being some sort of protein within a bread stuff. That's the base of it. So whatever fits your setting. But when in
Okay.
doubt, a hot dog is always a good choice.
Yeah, hot dog, sausage. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
just think of Ren Fair. It's like,
Yes,
whoa,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
You could get lots of things fried.
Yeah,
Ooh, a fried sausage on a stick,
yeah.
like with a like a corn dog. Could be a corn dog vendor for all you know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a corn dog is a sandwich by the finest or the loosest definition.
Okay. And then let's see the next thing we need to figure out the age range of the character. So
Oh,
if you
good
need to roll
question.
this
Yeah, let's
randomly,
roll that.
okay, so this will be a D8 roll.
Okay. Find my D8. So, 7.
Ancient. We have an
Oh,
ancient goblin named Zigster who is a food vendor, like protein, hot dog, sausage, and bun guy, food vendor. So with all these details in mind, so we got Zigster, we got goblin, food vendor, and they're ancient.
do you think it's
Ancient by goblin standards, I
okay?
guess.
Okay, that's what I was curious about. Whether or not they are
Could
like
be goblin standards, could be literally ancient.
okay.
Like it's been centuries, however you take it. But with these details in mind, your illustrator mind now picturing this character, can you tell us what's the physical description of this character?
So, I mean, they look. I think they look the same way that a hot dog does, in that it's like a little puffy, almost like they're a little too big for their casing. Maybe just from like being exposed to the sun for too long. They've
Hmm.
probably got some grill marks on their hands from working the equipment. But being ancient, they maybe, yeah, I think they look like that they have or could survive a nuclear blast. Like, just something about them means they are so preserved and they have so much preservatives in them that
Hmm.
they themselves maybe aren't actually just pure goblin anymore.
He's eaten so much of his own products that it's like, oh, you truly are what you eat.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
And,
yeah,
beyond that, as far as clothing, I think like probably like a nice apron and like a practical like wool shirt, sleeves rolled up. Um, Beyond that, I don't know if he has a hat, but if he does have a
mm,
hat, then it is also branded or embroidered with something related to his craft, or her craft, their craft, whichever, depending
mm.
on whichever Zigster you run into. They they're ones for branding. They know a good brand or the importance of a good Zigster dog.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. Now I'm just thinking of the name. It's like, okay, what do they call it in the city? Like the people in the community. It's like obviously depending on how you flavor it. If it's like, oh, if it's more like the bustle of New York City or Toronto or Los Angeles or San Antonio or Portland, Oregon. Very different vibes in all those cities, but
Right,
still like fast paced and people going. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go get a Ziggy, or
right.
I'm gonna go see Zigster and go get whatever they call it. It's like, do they call it a Ziggy or do they call it a Ziggy Piggy, or I don't know. Like,
Yeah, and I think much like hot dogs across the USA, like there's always a different interpretation of it. Like sometimes they're completely fried in butter, or sometimes the topping is a local delicacy or just real bare bones and it's only mustard and mayo or whatever
mhm.
you have on hand. That's what makes each Zigster or each Ziggy Piggy unique.
Ooh, yeah, I like Ziggy Piggy because then it's like like pork meat based, and then
Right.
it's like, oh, if we get the strips of it, we can wrap it around like bacon wrapped stuff.
I also like to think that Zigsters have suggested that even though there might not necessarily be any actual pork in it, it's all a
Mm.
branding sleight of hand to be like, oh yeah, you're getting a Ziggy Piggy, and then no one really questions what's actually in the hot dog.
I was gonna say, you tell me if in this part of the world it's true for you, but at least where I live, there are a few places where you can go and get like Korean style
Oh
corn
yeah,
dogs, and these
yep,
are like, do you have the Korean corn dogs where you
yeah,
are?
yeah.
Yeah, those are like fancy, like sugar coated. Like they get like they plus up a corn dog. And we think of like, oh, corn dogs are like the things that I can get in the freezer aisle and I just microwave them, or I go to the Texas State Fair and I can get like a super big one. But it's like Korean corn dogs kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think any good food can be dressed up to the point where it is a delicacy, but also so accessible that you can pay pennies for it and get the most bare bones version of it. And technically, you're still eating the same thing and all under the same category. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that applies to a Zigster as well.
Yeah, so they do offer like premium, like super fancy versions, but also if you're just like, I gotta go do my shift at the factory. I need a Ziggy Piggy while I'm eating it and working, going to the factory, sort of a thing.
Yeah, I like to think that Zigster knows their market, and if they are in a high end area, then they will serve. Like a Zigster is always going to do what they need to do to make their dollar, and cover the cost of whatever they're putting into the bun. So sometimes they're high end, sometimes they're just bare bones. It just depends on where they are.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, no, this is helping to inform the character. And certainly, for role playing purposes, when we're going to deploy Zigster in our story or whichever version of Zigster they encounter, what are the three adjectives that you think best describe Zigster as a
Oh,
character?
okay. Okay. Entrepreneurial. I think they are really always looking for a new business venture or opportunity to increase their profits or at least like make their business more successful.
Hmm.
I think they're resourceful. So I think they're always looking for or always able to find something that they need, no matter kind of, like kind of like getting blood out of a stone sort of thing. Like they always kind of have a contact that will get them or help them with what they need to do. And I guess ambitious kind of feels like a blend of the other two, but connected. I think if we
Mm.
have these Zigsters across the land and they're all kind of part of the same franchise system, then I think
They all come
they
from the same Goblin clan.
right, yeah, maybe. Yeah. So then I think they all are kind of a good, and I know kind of maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think they are probably always a good source for either intel or rumors elsewhere
Mm.
because they have a cousin's sister who is selling Zigsters here, and they heard insert rumor here.
I was gonna say, I was just reminded because I saw it on social media, and I have not, to my shame, I've not actually. I don't think I've actually seen all the Naked Gun movies,
Oh,
like
okay.
the old original ones with older original ones with Leslie Nielsen, and I knew the new one just came out with Liam Neeson, which I have yet to see. But I think there was a clip that went around where it was like Leslie Nielsen goes to a shoe shine guy and is just like, I need to find out information about this guy. And then the shoe shine guy's like, I don't know. And then he like gives him like a dollar. And he's like, all right, well, you didn't hear it from me. And then he like tells him what he needs. And he's like, great, thanks. And he leaves. And then the gag is a doctor comes up and he's like, this patient is real tough. I'm trying to do this surgery and I need to know how to do this. And then the guy's like, I don't know. And then the doctor like looks around, gives him a bribe, And he's like, and then so then the guy starts going into a dialogue about like, what kind of surgery are you going? If you try this method, it's like, no, you can't do that. You got to try this. So that's sort of the idea of Zigster, is kind of like, it's like, oh, I need to figure out like where these thieves are moving in, this thief gang in the market. And he's like, I don't know, I wish I could tell you. And you like, you give Zigster a little money. He's like, well, you didn't hear it from me, but at this time of night, whenever the guard shift changes, that's when, it's
Right.
you can always go to Zigster for information, but because of their entrepreneurial neutral sort of status that they hold, it's like, oh, they're like a good source of information that you could go to that isn't biased or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
not like the thieves can't mess with Zigster, because then that takes out like everyone being able to have a good meal for the day in the market or whatever. Like
Right. That's
people
it.
would be in arms if Zigster wound up dead or something like
As a reliable foodstuff, yes. I also like the idea of like what we're talking about with the exchange of information. If you have to buy the Zigster, or like you have to buy the foods to get the, like it's not just giving the 10 GP or the $10 note. You have to also buy, like the trade is, well, you got to buy some hot dogs, or you've got to buy some Zigsters to be able to get the info. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of the tip on top that kind of goes with the, like he's still trying to run a hot dog stand, so that's still the top priority.
Yeah. And we're saying this idea of like, the brand is Zigsters, and like, you could be running across a different goblin, maybe they're of the same clan. So is the idea that and Zigster is ancient, are we literally meeting like if the assumption is like we're taking this character that we're making and we're putting them in our game, are they going to meet like the original Zigster, or based on the sounding of the idea of this like franchise operation sort of a thing, is like Zigster removed in like maybe Zigster's still hustling and still selling Ziggy Piggies just like the rest of them, or is Zigster is sort of removed and just is like, oh yes, this is I manage the clan and the operation and stuff like that, and oh, everyone just calls themselves Zigster even if that's not their real goblin name, but that's kind of the deal with working for me and stuff like that.
Oh, I don't know. I do like the idea of any goblin that takes up a wagon like this becomes a Zigster. Like that just becomes your like name. Like you kind of become like a carter sort of thing. But I think this ancient one is maybe just the one who's been around the longest, or maybe the one who is the most experienced. And maybe they themselves are not the first, but everyone's kind of seems to go to them. Like maybe it's a Ship of Theseus thing of like, you keep replacing enough Zigsters. Is there actually an original Zigster anymore? Or like
I take a goblin part from this one, I take a goblin part from
Right.
that one, we rebuild the ancient. Is
Right.
this still the original Zigster or not?
Yeah. And maybe that's a question. I in my writing, I also like to do this. I like having some questions unanswered. So I think the nature of why this Zigster is ancient is left unanswered. I don't know if the characters or the player characters will ever actually find that out.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. And, maybe even the idea of like, he's still out there, selling these Ziggy Piggies as well, just as much as the rest of them. But he's treated as sort of like a regional manager or something like that. So like other cart vendors in the city are like coming to him like, hey, there's this, they're collecting all their information together, and they're like sharing their tips and tricks of like where the new spot's going, or like what activities going on in this area. Okay, can we change our recipe a little bit to cater to that a little more? So, but yeah, I like your idea of like, he's the trusted one the ancient one is like the trusted one that they go to. And maybe even from the further cities they'll come in and they'll like report to
Yeah.
ancient Zigster, and like so it really is sort of like this informal vast spy network, if you will. If you just play your cards right, or literally you just spend all your money at their food carts,
Buying
they'll
Ziggy
just
Piggies.
give
Yeah.
you everything that you need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like the idea of a network that is kind of informally like, or not governed by a single kind of body, like a kind of just like a collective, like it's almost like a hive mind. Like I also think if you insult or upset one Zigster, then that will carry over into other cities. Like if you rob one,
Oh,
you've robbed
yeah.
all of them in a almost like
Ooh,
mafia kind of style family.
yes.
So if you wrong one, no matter where they are in the hierarchy or experience level, that kind of just becomes a collective knowledge.
Mm.
So that
Kind
way,
of like the Mercanes, I think, is how they
yeah,
work in Spelljammer. Is like if you insult one of them, you've insulted all of them, and they will
right.
no longer deal with you, sort of
Yeah,
thing.
and they'll all kind of respond in their own kind of negative way. Like some might be more aggressive, some might just be aloof, or you might not be able to find the Zigster in another city because they just like refuse to be found. But once you've upset one, you need to repair that before you will connect with the others again.
Very cool. And of course, we like all of our NPCs on this podcast to have something cool on their person. It sounds like we've, maybe come across a few, but if we're wanting to roll for it randomly, we can. But what's going to be a valuable item, piece of lore, secret, or ideal or concept that a Zigster would possess? It sounds like obviously this business network, the idea that they're this informal spy network slash vast knowledge database that the you could go to. What is it? They talk about on social media of like, oh, if you want to know how things are going with the military in the United States, it's like the Pentagon Pizza Watch or whatever. It's
Oh,
like
right,
you watch and see if how the pizza orders spike, and then you know.
right in the
So
area.
maybe
Yeah,
even a thing of that of where it's like, oh, hey, the Ziggy Piggies are selling, like people are buying them a lot. Oh, something's about to go down because people are like, oh, they've ramped up work at the factories. They're having to pull like double shifts, or like, oh, Ziggy Piggies aren't doing as well over here. Oh, there's something bad's going on over there. So if adventurers are looking for something to do, they could just check like the Ziggy Piggy Figgy or whatever silly
right.
name they come up for it to be like, hey, network says like good things are happening over here, bad things are happening over here. Oh, it sounds like there's a plot thread over here,
Yeah, I think
sort of a
yeah, because
thing.
if you have a cart that's stationed over by the barracks, you know things are going to happen or something is going down. Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, outside of information, I mean, I'm also happy to roll. I think it's always nice for them to have just something surprising that
Yeah,
someone has paid them in exchange for a hot dog. So
yeah.
what do
So if
you?
you want to randomize it, this is a combo roll. So you get to roll a d4 for the category and then a d6 for the particular thing.
Okay, so D4. This is you can't see this because this is an audio only podcast, but my cat has decided to become very needy, so I'm holding them in one hand and we'll
It's
roll in
very
the
adorable,
other. Thank you.
audio only
This is
audience. It's
Bernard.
very adorable.
Thank you. Okay, a 1 for the D4.
Okay, so this is going to be an item.
Okay, great. And then a 6.
Correct.
Oh, sorry, I rolled a 6.
Oh, you rolled a 6.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this answer was provided by our previous guest, Skyline Stars. And I think it's very apt.
Oh,
So
great.
Zigster has a dinner plate that fills up with whatever food they want to eat, but you need to roll a DC 12 con save in order to actually eat the food, or else it turns into gray mush. Still edible, not tasting.
Okay, I like that. If we can modify it slightly, I feel like some of the food should be Ziggy Piggies, like either the food that they don't want to eat, or no
Hmm.
matter what, it fills up with the Ziggy Piggies. And then if they don't eat them all, then it becomes the gray mush. I'm open to the user's interpretation. Uh, if we can
Ooh.
modify. Otherwise, I also love the item as is.
Yeah, well, maybe it's like, what helps it to be interesting is like, if it's what is it? It may be like a very basic lottery of like the 50-50 lottery
Sure.
idea of like you either take the guaranteed thing, which is going to be like the Ziggy Piggy,
Oh yeah. Okay.
or they offer this other thing, which is like the plate.
Yeah.
They're like Ziggy Piggy or plate, and it's like they hand you one or the other, and the idea is like, oh, if you decide to take a plate, okay, when you take the plate, you think about what it is you want to eat. Okay, roll a con save, and then like it either is going to be mush or it's going to be the whatever you wanted to eat. And so
Right.
maybe that's also another thrill of going to Zigsters is like, I don't know. I've tried this week 5 times. I've tried to do the plate option, and it's always come out as mush. I'm feeling lucky today.
Right.
So that may be like a fun 50-50 idea you throw with the cart of like, oh, do you want the Ziggy Piggy or do you want the plate?
Yeah. The
And that's like the formal, informal way they ask it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Ziggy Piggy in the hand is worth 2 drumsticks in the bush, sort of thing.
Yeah. but some people are like have gotten lucky and they're like, oh, I wanted to eat like an ancient gourmet properly prepared and not poisonous T-Rex steak, and they got it on the plate like first time or something like that, and or someone else got like filet mignon or like a Korean barbecue or orcish barbecue or whatever it was, like whatever they imagined it could be. They got it on the plate. Otherwise, it just appears as like this goblin preferential mush, gray mush. And maybe for goblins, they're like, great, I love the plate because they have like horrible con saves or whatever. So like all the other folks are like, yeah, I'll take the plate. Oh, the Ziggy Piggy's too rich for me, sort of a thing.
Yeah, they're happy to have a change of pace from the Ziggy Piggies, that they're just going with the mush, or that's kind of like a nice palate cleanser for them.
Yeah, that's cool. So it's not tasty. It says it's still edible. It's just not tasty,
Right.
which is funny. Which like a goblin, a kobold, or some of these other races that or ancestries or species don't have like a particular. They're like, I need food sustenance in my mouth to go to my stomach to fuel me for the day, or just workers who are beat down, or just like I'm a coal miner. I've lost all sense of smell, and so just to even have something is fine, sort of a thing.
Right. Just like straight sustenance, like just eating to live. That's all.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, and then let's see. Now, this Zigster that we're encountering, the ancient Zigster, has got to be able to have some sort of gold, bright gold exclamation point above their head to let you know that they're a side quest giver. So, what is going to be the side quest that Zigster will come to or just will offer up to a bunch of player characters to assist them with or go off and do. If
Okay.
you want to randomize it, it's a D12, or if all on based on what we're thinking, do you think that Zigster would offer up as a side quest?
No, I'm realizing now what I've done is also brought in one of my other favorite kind of like literature or pieces of art, which is a comic book series called Delicious in Dungeon,
Mm,
which is like imagine a D&D campaign, but each chapter is a different recipe or based around eating a different monster. So
mm,
now I'm realizing that that's also what I'm bringing into this. So I think the quest should be that this ancient Zigster is looking for the players to kill and then bring back a certain type of meat. So depending on the level of the player characters, like something appropriate for them. But the Zigster wants to make Ziggy Piggies with a specific type of protein. So if they can bring back a haunch or the full carcass of something,
mm.
then he will or they will provide the players with something good.
Ooh,
Yeah, because they're too busy selling what they've got to be able to go and get it themselves. So
I see.
it requires like some hunting and some change of scenery, because this is probably happening in a city. So this means that they have
Right.
to either go down into the sewers or into the rooftops where something is nesting or into the woods. Like they need to change environments because the Zigster just can't get to that location to get it themselves. So kill something.
Yeah.
I don't know what that beast is, but I think again I want to leave that to the dungeon master to fill in that
Yeah.
blank.
Yeah, whichever city you're in. Yeah, depending on what's going to be the different environment from where you currently are to go and get the beast of the hunt.
Yeah.
So shout out certainly to our previous guest, Eating the Dungeon, who does great YouTube videos on preparing and hunting different D&D
Oh
creatures and
yeah.
like what are the different ways that you ought to prepare. So everything from purple worm to catablepis, fascinating stuff. And he's a very big culinary nerd. So he really studies this stuff and has a fantastic Discord community and social media as well. So if you're this would go synergistically with Eating the Dungeons work and that whole part of the hobby that are like, well, if we're in these dungeons and we're fighting all these monsters, like we don't want to just leave all this around to just rot and go to waste, right? Like surely someone wants to eat a dragon corpse or
Yeah.
like or whatever corpse. So it's like, yeah, okay, perfect. So level appropriate wherever your party is, whatever location they're in. Our ancient Zigster needs you to go and hunt this creature down to bring it back because they want their meat.
Yep.
And you said it's more of a question of like, hey, I'm looking to change things up on the menu? Or is it like, oh, I'm starting to run low on stuff. I don't know when I'll be able to get like a resupply. So if you could just go get this for me, that would be like really helpful.
Oh, I was thinking it as like a culinary Mount Everest, in that like I've never been able to make a Zigster with this meat, and therefore it's a kind of like a personal goal, because I think they probably have enough access and resources to kind of get a good stream of like rats and basic proteins to fill, or things that you don't really want to ask the questions of.
Oh, we've turned Snowpiercer. Oh, those jelly
Right.
cubes you're eating are just crickets.
Right. So I think this is more like I've never been able to, especially because this an ancient Zigster. They want to, like, this is their white whale, is I've always wanted to see how can I make a Ziggy Piggy from a red dragon thigh or a purple worm tongue or something like that. So that's my thinking.
Okay, very cool. So, all right, the goal is clear in mind. Hunt the beast, get it, and bring it back. So we have to consider what's going to be the reward. How is Zigster, our ancient Zigster, going to reward the party for successfully bringing back the quarry?
I mean, I think my gut is that it is like some very secreted lore. Like, I think it's information. I don't think it's like a tangible reward in that, like, now I have this item or this money. I think it's knowledge. So again, this is also what I do in my writing too. I really seem to put a lot onto the DM at that table. I think it depends on what fits best for your world, but whatever crucial piece of information the player characters are looking for or are really stuck on, the Zigster just knows. They just happen to have exactly the answer that they're looking for. So I think that becomes the reward.
Okay, so whichever crucial piece of information that's needed in your campaign, if you are like, what's the plausible way that I can introduce this to the players without them just being like, oh, rolling their eyes? Here's the DM that's having to step in and spoon feed us because we're just spinning our wheels and can't think of it. You're like, aha, Zigster can be the one to deliver it, and it's plausible because of the world building.
Yep. And that, I think that's also fun too, to have them again already kind of know that they're looking for this information. Like, even if the player characters don't think to ask, I think it's fun to say, well, if you hunt this down, I do happen to know, and then fill in the blank, even if the player characters aren't specifically asking for that info. Because I think that also then reinforces how knowledgeable this network is to already know that they're looking for that info, and then also already have the answer.
Yeah. Cool. And then we have to consider the opposite. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure? So either just, telling Zigster, no way, no thank you, beat it, get lost, versus just like, oh, we tried to go hunt the thing and the thing escaped, the meat spoiled, or, whatever happened. What's going to be the consequence of failure or refusing the call to the adventure?
I think it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, in that because they are such an interconnected network, refusing it to this either cuts off all other quests from others, or it's not until it cuts off the information until you end up kind of accepting the quest from a different Zigster to do something else. Like, basically the well of knowledge runs dry until you do something for them, if they've asked you to do something. So I think that's the consequences. Yeah.
I wonder if and depending on, so they go to the ancient Zigster, they can't do it. I'm just thinking of like a video game where it's kind of like a little bit cheeky. It's like, oh, okay, we're gonna go fight the super hard boss. Oh, we got our butts handed to us, and it's like you try it again, but like with like, oh, this is the Zigster in the red hat now instead of the blue hat, and but the one in the red hat's like, can you go hunt a little baby animal for me? And it's like, okay, you don't need to insult me like that. Like, so maybe it kind of like, maybe it like, emboldens your players, or it like lights the fire under them where they're like, all right, that's it. We got to go back to that ancient Zigster. I'm not,
Right.
this one is asking for like something like insultingly easy, or like, just something that's just like insulting of like, I would like, oh, it just gets under my skin sort of a thing.
Right. Yeah. Like each Zigster is looking for a different meat or has their own kind of different goal, but the ancient one is the one that's looking for a very high challenge as opposed to some of the other ones. And maybe the level of experience or the age of the goblin pushing the cart kind of hints at how difficult that challenge likely will be. Like if you see a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed goblin pushing the cart, you know they're going to ask for something easy because they've barely been doing this, and then that gives you that confidence to take on their quest.
Yeah. Okay. And then also, because if the players are like, well, this Zigster that's operating this cart, if they're, they sort of have like this interconnected network and this hive mind, if you will, they have some goblin identity that they had before, but they're either very tight-lipped about it or they literally, through some magic or whatever, it's like, I'm just Zigster. This is who I am. Like, I'm the ancient one, or I'm like the fresh-faced one. Maybe they try and exploit it. They're like, oh, we'll just go knock out all the easy ones, thinking that'll give them the same information that the ancient one is holding on to. But it's like, oh, no, you can't game the system that way. So it's a way to like make sure that your players aren't like brute forcing their way, around it by like, oh, I wanted you to do the ancient one, but like, okay, I guess you can't get the information the ancient one's holding on to until you're ready. Maybe you get like little tiny nuggets or something about the information, like just hints or something like that. And maybe that's all your player characters need, but they'll always wonder and be like, well, what would the ancient one would have told us if we had been able to do the side quest for him?
Right. Like the young Zigsters are like, oh, that's not my story to tell. I know it, but that's not for me to tell. That is for the ancient one to share. I can tell you this information, and it's a much lower stakes rumor or detail that maybe they already know or has less kind of value to them. So you get out what you put in.
We found out about that months ago. That's what set us on this course.
And they're so pleased to tell you. They're like, oh yeah, we've got this great info. And then they tell you and you're like, oh, that doesn't actually mean anything. So they're disappointed as well as you.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. And then I'm just thinking about the color coordination of like, okay, that's like all the easy ones. We've knocked out all the easy ones. It's like we've done all the medium ones and the hard ones we're grinding away on those. It's just that ancient one that's left. It's like we gotta knuckle up and do it. Like we gotta do it. Yeah, we gotta know. We gotta know the secrets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you're just having fun. The DM's like, this is easy. All I have to do is just prepare monster hunts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think each Zigster. Well, yeah, if they're looking for meat, then that can always be the case. But you're right. Maybe it is nice to mix it up. But in a system that generally leans towards fighting monsters, I think it's a good kind of classic way to kind of get that in without it just being, this is threatening our home or our farm or has stolen my children. Like it's a fun kind of like light twist to be like, oh no, I just want to eat it. So that changes the pace or the tone of it a bit.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm just imagining all the combinations. Like, oh, I've heard zombie meat is real interesting. Like zombie meat. Like, what is in these Ziggy Piggies? Oh, it's all great stuff. Don't you worry.
Yeah, right.
And now they start getting suspicious. They're like, but what are in these things? And and now if you get on that, like we were alluding to earlier, oh, if they wrong one Zigster, they've wronged all of them because they're like, they're tearing through the carts trying to find out like, what are you poisoning us with? And it's like, I don't know, maybe through the magic of the Zigsters, like they could take bad meat and it become good meat.
Right.
And then people just don't ask questions and they're like, well, I've never pooped my guts out. I've never have gotten bad sickness or plague or become invalid or something like that. So seems good to me. Why are you looking a gift horse in the mouth sort of a thing?
Yeah, it's like very Sweeney Todd in that like, oh, we like didn't have a lot of meat before and now these like really great pies are coming out. So we're going to just enjoy them and not ask any questions because it's filling a need that we had.
Yeah. And yeah, so that takes us through all the normal questions that we have in NPC creation. It sounds like we've kind of started doing a little bit of the optional questions, but do you think Zigster's pretty well formulated, or are you ready to head into the next section?
Sure, yeah, let's head into the. It feels good. I feel like the gaps that are still remaining are small enough for the DM to fill in on their own and make each Zigster their own.
Perfect. Well, without further ado, I think it's time to take our Zigster into Random Encounter. This random encounter is brought to you by my sponsor, Zencastr. How do I use Zencastr? Well, that's the service that I'm using right now to be able to record my episodes of the podcast. It's what allows me to capture it all, put it into my editing machines on my new computer to get it processed and put forth onto the interwebs and podcast land for you all to enjoy. I was able to take part of this service, all thanks to my buddies Benjamin Huffman and Dane Fox McGraw over at the Dispel Magic podcast. And, if you were at this time in your life wondering what can I be doing? What sort of hobbies or things that I could be branching out to? Well, I'm here to talk to you today about Zencastr. It's so easy. It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen. Knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. You can sound your best. Have you ever wondered what you might sound like? Well, Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically works to remove those filler words in your recordings, and it makes those awkward pauses in conversation dip out as well. You can set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with the click of a button. It's all in one, so if you've thought about podcasting before and realize that you need a lot of different tools and services these days in order to do a podcast, well, I can assure you that those days are done. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SIDEKQPodcast, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Again, go to zencastr.com/pricing, use my code SIDEKQPodcast, get that 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. Thank you so much for listening to this ad and for supporting the sponsor. It helps to support the show. And without further ado, on with the podcast. All right, so now we're at the part of the show where we are in a random encounter. We do a little bit of a role play, a vignette, a scene with the character we've made here today. So I think Andrew's going to do a fantastic job portraying an ancient goblin meat vendor.
Okay.
But the question becomes, who am I going to be in the scene? Am I going to be one of my cavalcade of characters of the podcast, an adventurer character that comes up to Zigster to get some sustenance and be given the side quest? Am I going to be a younger Zigster talking to the older Zigster, and we're in a Zigster's meeting? Or I don't know. Is it this ancient Zigster maybe something about their own past and becoming a Zigster themselves, and maybe even teasing some of this hidden lore that we don't know about. So question to you. So what kind of scene are you interested in portraying Zigster in today?
I do like a classic, like you've come up and you are interested in buying a Ziggy Piggy.
Okay, perfect. So we've got an adventurer character. So we've got a couple that we could use. So we have Duncan. He's the recklessly brave adventurer for hire, happy-go-lucky. No feat too small, no task too daring. We've got Sonia. She's the warrior woman. Started off as a barbarian, multi-classed into a paladin who serves a god who wishes to redeem the undead. We've got Korak, who's the lawful evil arcane trickster roguish dwarf. We've got Chrisley, who's the herbalist, botanist, wood elf druid, who started, as a druid and then multi-classed into a cleric who serves living memory. Orion is the astral elf illusionist wizard. We've got Agape, who's the lilac-colored tiefling Sorlock. Started off as a wild magic sorcerer and then multi-classed into a pact, the Archfey Pact warlock. We've also got Lifespell, the necromancer, who is just a little forest gnome, old man necromancer, who's got a whole Skelly Bro crew in tow with him. And then we've also got the dwarvish bard, Amblin Mithril Shaper. That's her name. Yes, Amblin Mithril Shaper, who's a dwarven bard lady. She's only been featured in one adventure, but those are all the official characters that have been made for this section of the show. But if none of them speak to you, we can totally create a brand new character
No,
here.
I was gonna say, if I counted right, that sounded like 8 that we could roll if you want an element of randomness for your side of things as well.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we'll roll a 1. Okay, so Duncan, is that right?
Duncan.
Great.
Yeah.
You are in town, Cobblestone Street, and it's busy enough in that there's like lots of people moving, but one person and little business stands apart in that you see a goblin, wizened and elderly, but in contrast to the like very shiny and bright new cart that they are pushing, and you can see a big Z painted across the curtain or the canopy that drapes down, and the smell of fresh cooked meat wafts from that. He is busy behind the cart as he's rotating what looks like tubes of meat and frying or toasting buns, and that is clearly the source of the smell. So seeing that, what do you do?
Yeah, so with Duncan's last adventure, he's just fresh back from the Feywild because he had a whole adventure with Sarcastique Undertone, the Hexblood accountant of the Feywild. So there was a whole adventure he went on with that, and he's got in contact with the Hag and that organization, was able to get the teleport back to the mundane world, and he's just like shakes his head clear, and he's like, I got to get to a city. I got to go back to my home base for now in this region. And so he proceeds into the city, and he's already beginning to see the queue form. And he's like, "Oh, what?" He's like, "Oh," and probably Duncan will roll his history check. We'll say he does really well. He's like, "Oh, a Zig! I didn't know they had one of these in this city. Oh, this is great." And so Duncan will wait in line, and I guess it seems to be the queue's going pretty fast.
Yep.
And so it gets to Duncan, and he comes up. He comes up now. It's his turn in line. And so how does Zigster react to him?
So because you've interacted with or seen Zigsters in the past, you know that not that they are vendors of few words, but they are vendors of little patience. So they look at you assuming that you already know what you need to order and are waiting for you to take the lead.
Ooh, but I think the Zigsters would also know that Duncan is quite loquacious. And he can get off onto his own tangents and
Okay.
stories and stuff like that. So I think seeing this, maybe one of the rare instances where this ancient Zigster like points to the side as if to indicate, like, I know you're going to take forever, so you better let the rest of the line go ahead of you. And Duncan pouts, and he realizes that, like, yes, this is probably the most prudent thing to do. So he waits, and he's probably waiting for a while, and he's just waiting. And then the rest of the line finally speeds through because about this time, the lunch rush is done. And so, like, most everyone has gone back
Right.
to work. And so Duncan looks to make sure no one else is going to come up suddenly. And now this ancient Zigster, like, will regard Duncan. And now having no chance of interruptions or something like that, Duncan will now politely, like, go up to his place, and he's like before the Zigster now.
Okay. And then the Zigster puts like hands on hips, but one hand is clearly holding like the tongs that move the things around, and says, "All right, you gonna order what?"
Oh, of course I'm going to order. I've worked up quite an appetite today, don't you know? You know what? I think I'm going to order both. I'm going to have a Ziggy Piggy and a plate. I
And
think I'm going to do it.
he says, "Just one Ziggy Piggy? Big strapping young man like you?"
Oh, you flatter me so. All right. He checks his coin pouch. He's like, all right, 2 Ziggy Piggies and a plate.
He's like, "All right, I'm just saying 5 would be better."
Ooh, let's see. I don't know. This is like a persuasion check against Duncan. I feel like Duncan, if you get to talk into Duncan, he's chaotic good. But I feel like if you like really get to smooth talk at him a little bit, flatter him a little bit, I think Duncan can be easily persuaded. Not to mention the deerskin loafers that he has makes him more susceptible to the command spell. Not that this is necessarily a command spell
Sure.
effect. I just think in general it makes him a little more easy to persuade. So in this instance, he'll be like, "Oh, dash it all, fine, make it 5 piggies and a plate."
He's like, I knew you was a patron of the arts, and goes and then.
"Oh, you've seen my card," and he like pulls out a card and he goes to hand one to the ancient Ziggy, which notates all the normal thing of like Duncan, adventurer for hire, no task too small, no feat too daring, proud sponsor of a stone cast of the Hexblood siblings, Katniss and Del Ramon, as featured in a previous episode of this podcast.
And he takes the card while deftly preparing these Ziggy Piggies. And you can see that he pockets it and says, yeah, of course, I know you. But you get the impression that he says that to everyone.
Yes, well, have you heard this one? And he starts going off on his latest adventure that he had in the Feywild with sarcastic undertone, which, based on what we learned in that last episode, apparently is like the most trustworthy guy, but also like kind of like one of the most feared guys in the Feywild, as far as like because he's the accountant, taxes sort of a guy in the Feywild who serves like the Fey courts IRS department,
Okay.
sort of, but he's also sort of like an assassin too. Like people use his name as like a swear to be like, I swear that this is like the truth, or like, so he's like, he starts telling you about like his latest adventure that he had with sarcastic undertone.
And probably 2-3 minutes into the story, then the Zigster hands you both your small kind of like pyramid of Ziggy Piggies as well as the plate. And says, yeah, that's very good. That's very interesting, but I got customers. And so I will ask you to finish these elsewhere.
Well, he looks around and Duncan doesn't see anyone. And he's like, what? But wasn't lunch done? I mean, don't you... I don't know. Don't you have time to talk? You seem like you need a break.
He's like,
maybe.
He's like, oh, no, I never stop. And also, this is not my permanent location. I will be moving to another location now for another lunch.
Oh, he's like, well, I'm not doing anything. I guess it's a walk and talk. And so he just actually begins to like just sort of, because he's bored, I guess, and he's not on an adventure right now. And I think Zigster can detect this. Like,
Sure.
It's his subtle way of like itching for like, I'm looking for some work. I'm looking for an adventure. I don't have one presently. So maybe you've got something for me, sort of a thing.
And so this conversation is probably happening as he's like picked up his cart and is wagoning it to the next location. So mid move of his little stall, he sets it down and he says, actually, you know what? I could get some help. How are you at hunting griffins?
Hunting griffins? Why? Let's see, Matt. No, that was the. He starts going into the story about Jack, the Sky Elf farmer, and then he starts realizing he's like, no, that was manticores. They needed me to hunt manticores. I've hunted manticores up in the mountains. Surely that's enough credentialed experience to be similar to griffins.
Yeah, he puts up a tiny little clawed hand when you can see the grill marks on his hands from when he's recently burnt himself. Despite doing this for years, still ends up forgetting himself. And he says, I'm going to stop you right there. I just need a griffin hunted. Can you do that? Yes or no?
Yes, I could hunt a griffin. I could do it with my eyes closed.
He says, okay, good. You get me a griffin and I'll get you someone good. What do you need?
Oh. Well, I don't know. Just, whatever you've got, I guess. I mean, most of the time when I do adventures, it's like, gold or an item or, piece of information or lore. It's just, I'm happy to go where the adventure takes me.
And so he leans against the cart and he kind of like one hand on hip, the other hand kind of resting, and he kind of waves it off. Says, no, we're not talking about goods. We're talking about knowledge. What do you need to know?
Ooh. And now that maybe in a rare instance of like, like in Blazing Saddles or Pongo, Pongo don't know. Pongo just a pawn in Game of Life. It's kind of like the sort of moment that Duncan has. He kind of looks off and he realizes that he's like, oh, existential moment. I just sort of go on adventure from adventure. There's no overarching plot to my story. There's no greater mystery I'm trying to solve. I just go where the adventure takes me, man. Don't you get it? The open road, life, adventure? Surely you know that. You go from city to city, you sell the Ziggy Piggies and the plates, and now maybe Duncan now focuses and he rolls. I'll actually roll and see how he does. So I'm pulling up my dice roller. Ooh, okay, showing it to the camera.
Yeah.
Oh, he got a 13. So maybe he's trying to think of something. Maybe because they're talking of griffins, he thinks about like griffin burgers, and all of a sudden a bunch of griffin burgers pop up on his plate. He's like, "Ha ha! I did it! Lucky me! Ha ha!" That's what it is, being an adventurer and being a fortunate son of fate. Yes. And he starts now munching on these griffin burgers. And he actually offers one to Zigster. He's like, well, you were talking about griffin meat. Is this the sort of thing you're looking to make?
And he holds up that hand again. He's like, no, I prefer the mush. But if you bring me back some real griffin, none of this magic griffin stuff, then maybe I could help you with your next path or send you down the right road for you to go down next.
Ooh, yes. All right. Yes, Zigster. You have a deal. And so then, like, he finishes quickly eating the food. He'll hold his hand out for a handshake as for the formal agreement of accepting this quest.
And the Zigster wipes his hands on his apron and gives that grilled hand. And confirming the deal, then you've been given this quest to collect fresh griffin meat for his Ziggy Piggies.
Yeah, and I think actually, even though Duncan has magic items that have enhanced his strength and stuff like that, I think this may be a rare instance where the age is deceptive as far as like the strength.
Yes.
And so Duncan even finds himself like as Duncan turns away from Zigster to begin progressing further, if this were a movie, it would see Duncan sort of like wincing and shaking his hand out, being like, the strength of the grip on that. How does he get that strong from just wielding tongs in a cart all day long? But then, yeah, so Duncan walks off and he's going to go now begin his journey to go get the griffin meat. But as the camera now is resting on Zigster, is there any last thing that we would see him do or say before the scene would close?
So he takes a break and he grabs one of those own plates and he doesn't even try to will something else. It immediately produces the gray mush and he kind of like hops up onto kind of one of the arms of the cart as he sits and eats. He says, I really do prefer the mush.
And scene. So there we go.
Great.
How was it getting to be Zigster?
It was fun. I love role-playing goblins. I always tend to play them as like 80s New York cab drivers. So that's my touchstone for a goblin.
Yeah, I love it. And this reminds me also of our previous episode we did back in season 4, 105 with the Goblin's Guard, which was a trio of goblin siblings who like basically took over a well in like a mega dungeon and they like set up a shop there. So I wonder, if I was going to incorporate both goblin clans, I wonder if Zigster maybe this trio was inspired because they were like, oh, we saw Zigster do it up in the cities and we're here down in the dungeon, in the mega dungeons or whatever. And so we got inspired, but we decided to take over an old outpost and made it into a little restaurant sort of a thing in the dungeon.
I love it. I love the franchise potential.
Yeah. Yeah, but Zigster, man, he's got it made. And just the lore and the implications of this little dude just, and all of them wandering the major metropolises of your world and like what sort of secrets do they hold?
I love it.
Yeah, so this is the final thoughts section of the show. So I always like to ask the guest and check in with them how they thought their time was on the podcast and all that good stuff, feedback, critiques, and criticisms, and all.
Oh no, I mean it went better than I could have imagined. I mean, some of your previous guests have set a high bar, so I just wanted to try to hold my own. And I mean, Rolling Zigsters, that's such a perfect name for a goblin hot dog vendor that I don't think I could have come up with that on my own. That was the fates deciding that.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, Ziggy Piggy, it just rolls off the tongue. And the magic item too with the plate.
Yeah.
I think is pretty cool. The Ziggy Piggy or the plate. And then it's like everyone knows like, okay, which one you're gonna get. And the 50-50 of the gamble of it is a fun idea. I think it'd be interesting, and especially you figure out the cost of these. If someone's sitting there buying plate after plate after plate, and they keep trying and rolling con saves to see whether or not they get the fancy food that they want.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about tabletop role-playing or just role-playing games in general is that they are truly collaborative in a way that like video games and obviously books cannot be. And I think this highlights that tonight. Like I really had an idea of, oh, this is like the sort of NPC. I really like the Discworld, cut me own throat, the character and all that. But there are those gaps that I could not fill on my own. And so we did it together. And that's why it's unlike any other sort of game that you can play. I love it. I'm really glad we got to share that tonight.
Yeah. Are we going to be seeing any fan art of Zigster anytime
Yeah,
soon
I'm really
on
thinking
the
of
socials?
I'm really thinking of like the branding of the wagons and if they are wearing a little hat, what does that look like? So yes, I'll make sure I have something ready. I mean, obviously by the time this drops, hopefully your listeners will be able to see it somewhere, but that's in the future.
And then we hope that Zigster will take off and he'll be the talk of the town in your Discords and all that. And people will be like, oh, I put Zigster in my my Wonderland game. So yeah, Zigsters are around in Wonderland.
I would love it if someone is so committed to the bit that they include a Zigster in different campaign settings. So the new player or same players, but using new characters run into a Zigster in a completely different world, really knowing that it's an interdimensional franchise.
Yeah. Zombie apocalypse.
Sure.
For some
But
reason, there's a goblin
still
here.
wheeling it around. Yeah, exactly.
Goblins aren't very tasty to zombies, so they just kind of leave me alone most of the time.
Yeah, it makes me think of the Flintstones. This is dating me, but the Flintstones dinosaurs and the kind of repeat refrain of "it's a living," like that. Just like that kind of feels like the energy of the Zigster.
Yeah, perfect. So we are here at the end of the show. So I always like to leave the stage, the soapbox, the microphone, the stage and platform over to the guests. So where can we find you on social media? Where can we, get those plugs for the projects you're working on? Where can we see more of your work? And are there any passions or causes or any such things that we need to be made aware of? Let us know.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So my name is Andrew Kolb. So my website is kolbisneat.com. My last name is spelled KOLB, like Bravo. And I always find it's easier to see than it actually is to like describe it. But if you search my name, you can find me, and then that leads to most of my books and so on. Passions. So I would say that like whether buying my books or anything with anybody that you've had on, it's always nice to support local. So lots of people ask like, is it better to buy it from this platform or this one? And I said, if you can go local, if you can go to your game store, they may not have copies, but they can always order it in. And that always helps both them because you're keeping the money in the community. And also it's nice for me too. So that's my little, not rant, but little soapbox is buy and support local.
Perfect. Well, Andrew, it was fantastic having you as a guest and making this character. And I can't wait to have you back on this podcast, making even more interesting NPCs.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon Music, Overcast, or YouTube, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app or player of your choice. Visit our website, sidekicksandsidequests.com, for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the show and the guests who have been on it. To stay up to date and interact via social media, you can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram/Threads, Twitter/X, and Reddit by searching for Side KQ Podcast. You can also find our small Discord community as well online. I would love to talk D&D and showcase your fan art, stories of how you used our NPCs, discussions, and commentary. And hey, if you'd like to hail the bard and send me a message, an email, you can do so by communicating with sidekicksandsidequests@gmail.com. To help this show be the resource it's meant to be, I ask that you leave a review on iTunes, 5 stars, please, to help spread the word and share our podcast with your friends and family. Whether you're a veteran player or an aspiring dungeon master, there's something here for everyone, and I want to hear about it. As mentioned in the NPC creations section of the podcast, I do in fact have a Patreon for Sidekicks and Sidequests. If you love this podcast and what we're trying to do here, I would appreciate it if you would just go to the website, patreon.com/sidekicks and sidequests. No matter your lifestyle expenses, we have wonderful rewards at every level of Patreon membership tier. Modest, comfortable, wealthy, and aristocratic accommodations await, and we welcome all patrons to the Levitating Platter. Seriously, your financial support allows for this passion project to continue to invest in itself through the tools that will take our production to the next level, as well as provide more content for our patrons and the community at large. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can.
Sidekicks and Sidequests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy.
Meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards.
Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast.
Copyright Wizards of the Coast,
LLC.
Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.